So I was browsing around on the Marvel Studios subreddit a while back, you know, just checking stuff out. I didn't really find anything all that interesting. Anyways, while I was there, I ran into this post with people laying out a schedule for watching every single movie set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one per week, leading up to the release of Avengers Infinity War. Now, I love that idea, I thought it'd be fun to do, but I wanted to put just a little bit of a twist on it to bring all of you guys in on it. So not only am I going to be watching all the movies, but I also want to do a weekly series of reviews for all of you guys leading up to Infinity War's release on May 4th. So with all that in mind, what better way to kick things off than to start with the very first entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man.
You've been called the Da Vinci of our time. What do you say to that?
Absolutely ridiculous. I don't paint.
And what do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad.
The movie follows Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, a cocky, genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist who, while selling and demonstrating weapons overseas, gets hit by an irony bomb and winds up captured by a group of terrorists known as the Ten Rings. In an effort to escape and get back home, Tony assembles a makeshift suit of armor to defend himself, leading him down the road to becoming the superhero known as Iron Man. Now look, I personally love this movie. I think the action's awesome, the characters are engaging, and honestly, I think I'll always have fond memories of being at Comic-Con 10 years ago and watching the very first trailer for this movie in Hall H. Seriously, that was a crazy experience for me, getting to see what was, at the time, a relatively unknown superhero, unknown to general audiences anyway, in a big budget movie that actually looked like it was going to take the source material seriously. I mean, you got to appreciate how big a risk this thing was for Marvel, especially when Robert Downey Jr. was brought on to play himself, Tony Stark. I know it's hard to picture anybody else playing Iron Man now, but back then, Robert Downey Jr. was actually seen as a bit of a risky choice. But hell, even after rewatching this movie, it's still awesome to see how he makes you care for what should essentially be an unlikable character. I mean, Tony sells highly destructive weapons, he's got this in-your-face personality, he's a bit of an egomaniac, and yet you still feel like you care about this person. You want to see him grow and mature into this more worldly and less self-absorbed superhero. Even before he gets kidnapped and should be one of the most unlikable people out there, Tony is still an engaging character, and you want to see what all he does next, what all he says next, all that good stuff. It's pretty much like the movie version of how Stan Lee wanted the character to be in the comics, you know, like a likable asshole. The rest of the cast really shines in this movie too. Like, I think Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts is the right amount of sensitive and spunky, and Jeff Bridges' Obadiah Stane is a great villain. I wish both of them had more to do, but they both still turn in great performances, so I can't really complain all that much. Really, the only two I didn't like were Terrence Howard's James Rhodes and Leslie Bibb's Christine Everhart. Now, I can at least forgive Christine, because even though I think the character's annoying and unlikable, I also realize that's kind of the point. She's not supposed to be a character you want to spend time with, so with all that in mind, I think Leslie Bibb did a great job. Terrence Howard, on the other hand, was just awful. I mean, that dude was just the worst.
That's terrible.
Like, he was extremely wooden the entire time, he was boring, and it never really felt like he was all that interested in being in the movie in the first place, like he just phoned it in or whatever. Seriously, can Marvel just pull a George Lucas and stick Don Cheadle in there at some point down the road? That'd be awesome. Anyways, moving on to the story, I really gotta appreciate how self-contained it is. I mean, I'm a hardcore MCU fan, and even I have to admit that pretty much every movie past The Incredible Hulk has made increasingly obvious attempts to point out how connected everything is, or to set up the next movie in the franchise, or something like that. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, I think some things in the MCU could do it a little bit better.
You people were raining down hell.
So go after the big green guy at the flag waver. I wasn't even there.
But Iron Man doesn't really do that. It doesn't try to cram some cameo or some reference or whatever into the story to set up yet another Marvel movie.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Okay, actually let me rephrase that. Iron Man does it, it just doesn't really do it all that much. And it's actually kind of refreshing. I don't have to constantly know that Bruce Banner's right around the corner or that Thor's doing whatever while Tony's at his house, you know what I mean? As for the actual plot, I think certain parts work better than others. Like, I'm glad they updated Tony's capture and escape, changing it from Vietnam like in the original comics, and instead had him be captured by a Taliban-esque terrorist group in the Middle East. It puts a more modern take on the story, and I think it translates to the Iron Man origin pretty well. Now, what I don't like about that is how that same Taliban-esque terrorist group, the Ten Rings, is pretty much worthless. I mean, they're just sort of there to give Iron Man something to beat up, and we don't actually get to know anything about them beyond, hey, they're bad guys, they do bad guy things because reasons. Like, who's this guy? He actually has one of the 10 rings. You'd think that'd be important enough to kind of explore a little bit, you know, see what makes him important enough to wear one of the Mandarin's rings. But Marvel decided who gives a fuck, apparently. Nobody cares. I'm not saying Marvel should have spent a crazy amount of time exploring the reasons the 10 rings are doing terrorist stuff, but maybe a tiny bit of explanation about the actual ring and why this dude's wearing it would have been nice. I also wasn't entirely crazy about the whole descent into villainy thing Obadiah Stane went through. Like, he just seems more like a generic asshole than a Shades of Grey type villain you'd expect from Marvel's eventual Netflix properties.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
But it still works. The special effects in this movie are easily one of the best parts of the movie, and honestly, they're probably some of the best we get to see out of the entirety of Phase 1. I think a big part of that is how they decided to go with more practical effects rather than rely on CGI.
So the suit you see downstairs at the Marvel booth and what you see in the movie, except for the flying shots, is all practical photography. We haven't done the CG layer on any of that yet, but that's why we're able to cut something together so quickly for you guys, because a lot of it was in camera.
I'm really glad they decided to do that, because everything feels real. Like, things actually look like they're there in the scene, and it really helps the movie age well. Like, I'm rewatching The Incredible Hulk right now, trying to get that review ready for next week, and the Hulk himself definitely hasn't aged well in some shots. It just looks a little awkward. Meanwhile, the Iron Man and Ironmonger armors both still look amazing, even in the places where you can tell they actually did some CGI work. And speaking of the practical, I've gotta say I really appreciate how quote-unquote real the technology in this movie feels. Like in later MCU movies, anything to do with technology just kind of gets more and more fantastical, like more comic book like. Robots, spaceships, whatever, it's just there and it works how it works. And that's fine and all, but I really like how close the stuff we get in Iron Man feels to reality. Maybe we'll never see something generating a nearly unlimited supply of energy like the arc reactor, but a high-tech suit of armor with a bunch of weapons and stuff, you never know, could be right around the corner. So overall, I really love this movie. It's a great entry point for MCU newcomers, it's still a fun rewatch for die-hard Marvel fans, and even for the more casual superhero fans who maybe just want to pop something in and see what all happens next. There's a lot going on here to keep you interested all the way through. But anyways guys, that's my take on the first Iron Man movie. If you guys agreed with anything I've said in this video, or maybe have your own thoughts about the movie that you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.